in Psalm 107, and we got up through about verse 2 yesterday. So let's pick it up in verses 1. We'll read to about verse 5. Verse 7 is where we're going to stop. Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, whom he hath redeemed from the hand of the enemy. That was Israel coming out of Babylon. It's you and me because of our salvation in Jesus. Verse 3, and gathered them out of the lands, from the east, from the west, from the north, from the south. They wandered in the wilderness in a solitary way. They found no city to dwell in. Hungry and thirsty, their soul fainted in them. When they cried unto the Lord in their then they cried unto the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them out of their distresses. And he led them forth by the right way, that they might go to a city of habitation. I love these verses. These verses are the psalmist celebrating God's deliverance of the wanderer. It's somewhat generic in its experiential metaphor. It's probably specific to the idea historically that when Babylon did invade Jerusalem, many of them were taken captive and taken to Babylon specifically, and were held there for 70 years. But in that season of invasion, people scattered every direction. And so there would have been this vast number of displaced people wandering about without a home, without a sense of belonging, without safety, without protection, without regular provision. It would have been just a vagabond, refugee kind of existence. And they would have been longing the whole time for deliverance and for safety. And they would have been longing for home. They would have been longing for that city that was safe and protected by an army and led by a noble king, and where the temple was, and where their feasts and celebrations and the national life of Israel was thriving and flourishing, as the stories would have told them. They would have longed for that. They would have longed to be able to go and worship at the temple and rebuild what was devastated by the Babylonian invasion. And they dreamed of this. They longed for this. God said 70 years, but they longed and longed and longed. And what did they do while they were wandering? I don't know if you've ever had a wandering season of life, a season of life where you felt displaced, you felt homeless, you felt like you were just hand to mouth, day to day, week to week, where you didn't feel like there was a lot of stability in life, or where you were longing to get back to some sense of normal, like a COVID time. We all experience these times different ways, different dynamics. But the psalmist profiles it really well. We're scattered at times. We are wandering. We feel like we're wandering. We feel like we're alone. We feel like life is a wilderness. There's some aspects of this description that fits life in general. Like, this is where we are. We are pilgrims passing through in a very short, brief lifespan, passing through planet Earth, time and space, on our way to eternity. We long for, verse 4, a city to dwell in, a home. We long for a place to belong. We long for a sense of, this is who I am, this is where I belong, these are the people I belong with. We have that with family at times. We have that maybe with our hometown. We have that with our church family for sure. We miss that right now, or through this whole year of COVID. And I'm so glad we can begin seeing regatherings grow and grow, and that our governing authorities are now granting that to a greater degree. Hungry and thirsty, their soul fainted in them. And that's the phrase I want to focus on, is hungry and thirsty, their soul fainted in them. To faint is to fall away, or to fall off track, to be distracted and so weary that you collapse off the journey. And this is what life can do to us. Circumstances can unfold that really just kick the wind out of us, that suck the life out of us. We've studied this a little bit when we've been talking about winter on Sunday mornings, but I just want to speak to this, that the times where we're faint, they're going to be short times. They're going to be recurring seasons. Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall, but they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Life is a recurring pattern, a rhythm of expending and replenishing, expending and replenishing. And we can find ourselves expending to the point that we do grow weary. And it can be physical expenditure, emotional expenditure, spiritual expenditure, where we're flatlined. I've got no strength left. I got nothing else. And in those weary moments, in those faint moments, hungry and thirsty, when our soul faints within us, we lose hope. We lose the energy to care. We lose the desire. These are the times where we wonder, do I still love God? Does God still love me? Was it ever real? Do I care about anybody? And my friend, let me just speak to that for a moment. That is a feeling. It's not a reality, okay? Yeah, you do still love God. Yeah, you do still care. You just don't have the energy to do so, okay? And you're going to have to learn, if you're going to thrive out of these seasons, if you're going to experience the redemption, the deliverance that God wants to bring about out of these seasons, you're going to have to go back to verse 1. You're going to give thanks to the Lord. You're going to know that he is good, and you're going to rest in his mercy. You're going to know that in time his mercy will renew, resurge, replenish your strength within you. God will breathe in a resuscitating way new life and new strength into you when you're depleted, if you don't give up, if you don't quit, if you don't give in to the doubts. That's why verse 6 is important. Then, when they fainted. So expect at times for your soul to grow faint and weary. And when it does, don't despair, don't freak out. Do what verse 6 says. Then they cried unto the Lord in the middle of their trouble. Then they cried unto the Lord in the middle of their trouble. So they understood where to go with their feelings, with their fainting, with their weariness. They understood what the author of Hebrews says. Consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners, lest ye grow weary and faint in your minds. Let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. The Bible is filled with these kinds of promises and this kind of teaching that life is transitional, and we're going to pass through wilderness times, wandering times, fainting times. And when we do, we look up and we cry out to the Lord. And what does God do? He's going to deliver us out of our distress. We're going to experience distress, trouble, anguish of soul, a depletion, an expenditure, a crash, hitting a wall. Describe it. There's a million ways to describe it. You're going to experience these things in your life. These are the times. You might think, I can't pray. I'm not spiritual right now. I can't pray. I don't feel like I even care right now. I can't pray. I'm not even sure I love God right now. How could he hear my prayer? That's when you most need to pray. That's when he's most ready to hear you and most ready to respond to you. He is leaning into, attracted to, drawn to. His heart is most in tune with your expression of need, your expression of fainting, strengthlessness, if that's a word, your expression of distress. He is at home with you when you take that distress and express it to him. He loves to come running to the rescue. He is a God of mercy. He is a God with a good heart. And why this is so important, I just want to touch on this and we'll leave it here. Why this is so important is that our mind gravitates, and Satan gravitates with accusations. Our sense in life gravitates toward how we fail God, how we've let him down. And then we humanize his emotions. We put human responses to his emotions. We humanize the idea that he must feel towards me the way other people would feel towards me when I fail them, when I let them down. My friend, you cannot exhaust the goodness and the mercy and the tenderness of God. You cannot deplete his love for you. And he actually is drawn to you more in your times of distress and in your times of failure. Think about Jesus. Who was he drawn to? The most broken, the most outcast, the most isolated, The most flawed and failed individuals were who Jesus most loved to be with. So run to him, cry out to him, and don't let your distress repel you from him. It won't. He is not repelled by your distress. He's drawn to it.